Hello, welcome to episode 104 of the Epic Film Challenge, 1001 movies you must see before you die. Bit of a double feature here, two films that feature the character Hannibal Lecter. We're starting off with Manhunter from the 1980s, and this is the first film to feature Hannibal Lecter on the big screen, and it wasn't an Anthony Hopkins performance. We'll talk about Silence of the Lambs next, and I don't know if we really need to compare the two, but I'd never seen this film before. I'd heard about it. It just never really grabbed me. I never thought I want to go see that because the Anthony Hopkins version is so iconic, and so it's hard to kind of go back to this, even though this was the original Hannibal Lecter, film performance from Brian Cox, who plays him in this film. But also it's interesting because this is based off the novel Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, and there was another film made in 2002 with Anthony Hopkins again, so they kind of remade it, where he's in it a lot more. But in this film, Manhunter, Hannibal isn't in it as much as he is in the other one. But still, he has a presence in the film. Now, the film itself is about a FBI detective. I think he's with the FBI, Will Graham, who took down this killer, Hannibal Lecter, and it left him pretty scarred. And so he kind of went back from doing his job, but he gets called back by his boss, or his former boss, Jack Crawford, and says, look, there's this guy who's killing people. We were lost. You're great at your job. Can you just look at the evidence? Don't come back and back on the job. Just look at the evidence. And so Will Graham reluctantly agrees to kind of take a look into the case file of this so-called Tooth Fairy killer. And he finds himself getting drawn into it and sucked into the case to the point where he pretty much takes it on. And that's the film. Will Graham trying to track down this Tooth Fairy killer, and then he is the Manhunter, I suppose. So, directed by Michael Mann, who also directed Heat, which is a great film. And I can definitely see kind of the visual link of Michael Mann throughout those two films, because this film is very 80s, it's very like the colours and stuff, like there's a scene with Graham and his wife lying in bed, and their bedroom has like a glass kind of wall overlooking the sea, and it's just all drenched in blue, and it's all very like just stylized 80s kind of cinematography, which I really enjoyed. And the music, very 80s kind of synthy kind of stuff, really enjoyed that as well. I've seen this story before in another film, but that didn't hold back my enjoyment. It wasn't like, oh, well, I know what's going to happen, I know what's going to happen. I think this was a really well done film, and a really well done thriller that kind of unravels every bit of the plot as it comes, and it's just like every 5 minutes something else is happening with the case. It's like, oh my god, so what's going to happen there? Then, oh god, so he's found that out, and that makes the link. And I think it all goes down to Thomas Harris's writing, with Silence of the Lambs, Red Dragon. He just constructs it so well in unraveling everything towards that ending. So what do you think of the film?
I absolutely freaking loved it.
Yeah, brilliant.
It was brilliant. It was thrilling. It was the acting was great. Like you said, the way it was built up, it was really, really, really good.
Just great plot.
Yes, I love how you get so into the main character, which is Will.
Yeah, Will Graham.
Yes, Will Graham. Yeah. It's just the way he starts out trying not to go into it too much, and then he's putting himself into the situation when he just talks into the recorder, and he talks out loud like, you son of a bitch, and when he figures something out, he says it out loud, but he's talking to the killer.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like one of those movie moments where it's like, oh, they're talking out loud so that we can understand, and you kind of there's moments like that in films.
It feels like it's actually talking
yes,
to the killer.
It fits with his character and the psychology of him trying to get inside the mind of the killer, because that's what he does. He tries to feel what they feel, and he really delves into it. And I suppose that's why he's kind of out of doing it at this point, because he gets burned by kind of going in too deep.
Yeah.
But the actor who plays him, I forget his name, but he was in CSI. And I think he's great. I think he really does the role justice. Edward Norton was great in the 2002 version as well. But
we're watching that one because I can't remember how that.
Yeah,
like
but I really liked him. The cast is great. It's such a great cast. Like even down to the smaller parts.
Yeah.
And I have to say, that I think it's Tom Noonan who plays the Tooth Fairy killer or the Red Dragon killer. I thought he was fucking brilliant. Like that. I mean, we don't see him until about an hour into the film, and when we do see him, it's framed so you don't see like the top of his torso. You just see like his legs and like his back, and he's standing over someone, and just the way that he's talking, like I was just like my heart was pounding a little bit, just like, you know, maybe not pounding, but it was like a little bit of a quick quickening of the breath, you know, just the fucking hell, this is, you know, being faced with this guy finally after like an hour or something, and just the way that he speaks, very soft, and just something very disturbing. And then, man, I mean, I don't know how much we go into it, but we'll do a little bit of a spoiler talk, I think, because there's a key scene I want to mention. But
I want to say Hannibal was brilliant.
How did we not get to Hannibal? Brian Cox as Hannibal.
When you first see him, and he stands out so much in the cell he's in, because
it's like just white.
It's completely white. Yeah. It's so clean, and I feel like it kind of reflects him in a way, because he is so. I mean, he's not clean. He's a dirty man. You know what I mean? But I mean, his black sleek hair back. You know, and he just looks so
put together. Yeah.
He looks like the kind of person who's got 3 forks and 3 knives on the side of his plates, you know?
Yeah.
And has everything ordered perfectly. And the way he spoke, it was captivating in a way.
Yeah.
And Anthony Hopkins is too.
Yeah, and we'll get to that, but it's really interesting because
this one it's not the same filming.
I think a lot of people have come to this film after Silence of the Lambs, and so you automatically think like, oh well, did he do as good as Anthony Hopkins? When really it should be, did Anthony Hopkins do as good as Brian Cox? So it's weird how that works out, but I think that I guess it was really Anthony Hopkins who didn't. You have
to compare them.
I guess it was really Anthony Hopkins because he came afterwards who did his own thing with it. I feel like it's 2 different performances, but the essence of the character is still absolutely there.
Oh yeah.
And it's
calm.
Yeah. The educated. You know,
very, very, very smart.
Intellectual. But there's a moment. There's a moment where he calls Will. I think it's Will Graham. He calls, and you see him, and it cuts to him, and he's lying on his bed, and he's got his feet propped up against the wall, and he's just like yes, and he's just very like, and I just don't see Anthony Hopkins Hannibal doing that, but it still feels true to the character. So I don't know. I just found there was an interesting, you know, I liked how he was a little bit different. He wasn't in the film that much, but you know,
I wish he was in it more.
Yeah, but as with the story, he does play an integral role in it, which I really enjoyed.
I think it was like with Anthony Hopkins, I feel like the camera is really, really helping with that.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in the next one, so let's not talk too much about it.
Yeah, but I just want to say they don't do that in this
Yes,
one.
It's filmed differently. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. So
it's filmed differently, and so it's harder to really get to the person watching the movie. Yep. Whereas in Silence of the Lambs, he's actually looking right at you.
That's a great point. We'll just say that. In Silence of the Lambs, you know, Jonathan Demme went way in with all the close-ups. You get lots of extreme close-ups of Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal. In this one, when you see Will sitting outside the bars and Hannibal sitting, it's quite distant, the framing.
Yes.
And so you feel a bit cut off from it.
You're not in the conversation as much.
Yes. And so in Silence of the Lambs, we're much more intimate with Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins.
You are in the conversation.
And we'll get to that again, as I say. But yeah, that's a good point to mention.
But that's about the directing and the cinematography.
True, yeah.
They could have done that in this one as well, and it would have been the same thing. But I still found it really captivating in the way he talked.
Yes.
And it made me really interested, and I wanted those 2 people to talk more.
Yeah.
I wished I was in a room to listen and watch them, you know?
Yeah.
And I really liked the way Hannibal was affecting Will.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in Silence of the Lambs, where you can sense that he wants to go back to him, but he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Because it's really, really bothering him. I have a hair in my eye. It's really bothering me.
But I like, because I guess to compare again with the Anthony Hopkins version of this story, Red Dragon 2002 film, there's a lot more Hannibal in it, and you see Will Graham and Hannibal before he caught Hannibal.
Oh.
Because obviously at that point it had become such a thing where, you know, Anthony Hopkins had played Hannibal twice, so they wanted more of it. But I think I prefer not seeing that and having Hannibal be so limited in this story, because it just, you know, I just feel like it's a bit more effective, much in the same way as Hopkins' limited screen time is in Silence of the Lambs. Anyway.
Well, that makes a good movie because it makes you want
more.
It makes you imagine the rest of the story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like because
you don't need to see it.
They talk about it. They talk because Hannibal's like, "Do you know how you caught me, Will?" You know, and like so they kind of touch on it, but you don't get to see it. Whereas in Red Dragon you do, and maybe that was just kind of like, well, let's do it because we got Hopkins. But
I thought Jack was great as well, by the way.
Jack Crawford, yeah.
Yes.
I forget Dennis Farina, I want to say.
I prefer this Jack.
Yeah. So yeah, he was good, and I think it was a great film. I really, really enjoyed it, and I love the 80s feeling of it as well. And yeah, so.
But most of all, I just love the acting of Will himself.
Yes, great performance, and I think he just really nailed the role of Will.
Yeah.
So, is it a film you must see before you die? And there's one spoiler thing I want to get to, but is it a film you must see before you die?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it is too.
Definitely.
As far as like the kind of serial killer thriller, I think it's one of the best ones I've seen. I really do.
I feel almost more this one than Silence of the Lambs or the other Hannibal movies because this is the original, isn't it? And it's the good original. It's
yeah, it's honestly
really, really good.
Honestly, I didn't expect that. I really
No,
thought it was going to be, you know, oh, this is interesting to see Hannibal played by someone else, but obviously it was done better later. But
and the climax is really.
I
good
certainly
too.
think I prefer it to Red Dragon, which I never thought I would say, because I love that film. But this one, and I read that Tom Noonan as well. But yeah, as I said, it's a great serial killer detective mystery unraveling film that's done really well. And again, that goes back to the author Thomas Harris, who put this story together. So one brief spoiler thing to end this off. I think a great scene to me was, or great kind of story plot was where we start seeing more of the Tooth Fairy killer, Tom Noonan's character. I think, what's the guy, his name Dollarhide or something. But we see him... Francis, right. We see him take home this girl from where he works, and she's blind. And it's this really tense kind of build-up where we think, well, he's going to kill her, right? And then she comes on to him, and he's surprised by this, and
we are too.
and they have sex, and we see them in bed afterwards, and he doesn't know what to do with himself, and he places her hand over his mouth, and the camera comes in, and he starts crying.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a fucking brilliant piece of acting and a character moment where you start to realize that maybe he's going to change, you don't know, and that plays in so well into the finale, which we won't go into, but I just think that scene in particular really stood out to me.
Yeah, like, I thought it was brilliantly done because, almost like a Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing, because without you being a victim, but I mean, because you see that he's emotional, he's a human being too.
Yes.
And it was so real the way he cried. And I was just thinking, it's probably because he's never had a physical touch before, or had anyone want to touch him, and it's just, that was a really good scene. Yeah. And I also like how they didn't elaborate certain things too much.
Yeah, the sex scene wasn't very long, or it didn't need to be so.
But the emotional part after, and then you almost sympathize with him.
Yeah.
Just that second when he cries so genuinely, you know, and then you don't anymore. But still, you do think of him more of a person than what you did before, where he's just a serial killer.
Which complicates the ending as well. Where so it's just it's so well done, and
it's almost like the Joker. You almost feel bad for him.
And I don't know about that. But like any great 80s movie, of course, you know, I love how it just ends with just the family on the beach, and it's just like, I love the 80s-ness of this film as well. And I thought, because I spoke to my mum, she loves all the Hannibal stuff, and I kind of watched these films and read the books through her, growing up as a teenager. And I spoke to her the other day, and she was watching Red Dragon. I was like, oh, we're going to watch Manhunter tonight. And she's like, oh yeah, that's a great film. She said it's very like Miami looking though. Like she said, it's like, you know.
Part of it is in Florida.
Yeah,
so.
But I was expecting that, but I thought it was going to drag the film down a bit, and I thought it was going to date it a bit. But I think it worked very well. So there we go. Anyway, that's it.
I thought about Fast and Furious in the end with the beach.
So I think that's all we got, and then next time we'll cover The Silence of the Lambs.
It starts on the beach too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So it wraps it up.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it was like a bad scene, I'm just saying I love how it just, you know, the 80s-ness of everything.
Well, you want to know how they work out, so.
Huh?
The family.
Oh, the family, yeah. I thought you meant like exercise. Want to know how they work out? Okay, right. Let's end this review before it gets even more off track. Thank you for watching. We'll see you with the next one.